Welcome to the stage, it's the tale untold. Shane, the black swan breaking the mold. In a world of chaos, he rises from the fray. With wings spread wide, he's here to slay. Dark shadows lurking, but he won't back down. Black swan revelations, moments alive. Chains break barriers, watch and thrive. In this kingdom of dreams, we're brave dare to fly. The black swan's the limit, reach up to the sky. From the ashes he soared, a phoenix reborn. With beats in his heart, he's ready for war. Lyrics like daggers, sharp on the tongue. In the game for the throne, where legends are hung. Echoes of truth ringing loud and clear. Black swan revelations, moments alive. Chains breaking barriers, watching thrive. In this kingdom of dreams, where the brave dare to fly. Black swan's the limit, reach up to the sky. So welcome to the show. Let the good times roll. With Shane as the black swan, we're free, we're whole.
All right. Welcome to the show. I have a good one for you today. We're continuing with our obsession with Rainmaker. We're going to be watching an interview. This is an interview that Augustus had was interviewed by Sean Ryan just over a month ago. So this is actually juicy. This is very juicy, very sexy as to what he lays down. And I think if you're building a case against Rainmaker, for example, because that's what we've been doing, we've been trying to build a case only using his own words that perhaps Rainmaker was responsible for flooding Kerr County and the surrounding regions. That's the goal, is we're trying to build a case. And let's just say we come across something that goes against what we're trying to say. We'll show that. If it's like, no, there's no way that he was there within 100 miles of Kerr County, then we would have to say, you know what, this has nothing to do with Rainmaker whatsoever. He wasn't even in the area. He wasn't seeding that day. Nothing to see here, folks. What seems to be happening more is the more he talks, the more evidence we can gather to say companies like this are actually responsible for flooding regions within the area that they're seeding. So we're going to talk about this. And again, it's important. It's not me making this stuff up. It's us listening to what Augustus says and then go, oh, that's odd. Why would you say that? And is there anything else you would like to add? And then he sings like a canary. It's actually quite shocking. And like I said before, if I was his lawyer, I would say, stop with the interviews. What are you doing? What are you doing here? All right, let's see here. Let's see some of the comments. It's from Deidre. Deidre, hello, Speak Flooded. I was just watching Robert Breaker today as he went through an ARC exhibit. Oh, that's awesome. You know what? I got to get a hold of Robert. We're going to do a show together. This could be the perfect time to have Robert on my show. What's today? Today's Thursday. I'm going to try and have him on next week. Maybe Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, something like that. So we'll see. I'll try my hardest because I think that'll be great. This is perfect timing. I'm telling you. This is, you can't write this stuff. It's all falling into place. Let's see. A-Ban, how you doing? Can hardly wait for the rapture. I agree. Awesome. Hi, y'all. Let's see here. All right, let's interesting thing that happened last night. I went to a show with my son, and we went to see Superman. Now, I've already watched it one time, but the first time I went to see it, I was a little bit of a critic. I was comparing it too much to the other previous Superman shows. But this time I thought, you know what? I'm going to go with my son. We're going to watch it, and I think it'd be fun. So we're in Cochrane. Went to the theater. It's jammed. It is jam-packed. We went late last night, like 9:30, packed. And we walk into the show. On the right of us, there's a ticket booth, closed. Left of us, ticket booth, nobody there. So we walk in, and a guy comes up to us, and he works there, and he's like, can I help you guys? Maybe I can help you. Like, he was kind of making his way back towards the booth. And I said, we want to go see Superman. He's like, oh, I'm sorry. It's sold out tonight. I was like, I knew it was a good movie. I knew it. So he said it's sold out. So I started thinking, well, there's Fantastic Four, there's F1, could go see that show again, that kind of stuff. Then, I kid you not, my son was there as a witness. There was a glitch in the Matrix. A glitch. I'm telling you, I've never had this happen to me before. The guy says, we're sold out. I'm sorry. Sold out. Then he says to us, like, within his next breath, he says, actually, tonight is free movie night, and you guys can go on in. It's Theater 4. And I started walking in. I actually wanted to get some pop and some popcorn, but I was confused. So my son and I walked in, crowd, it's packed. Walk in, sit down in the theater, giddy as kids, and the movie starts. And I'm like, do you know what just happened? He's like, nope, I have no idea. I've never seen this before. My son's like, how old is he now? He's like 30, 32 years old. It's like, I've never seen that. I'm like, I've never seen this before. The guy literally told us it's sold out. And then in the next sentence, he's like, oh, it's free movie night. Just go on in and go to Theater 4. And I was shocked. I'm looking at him. We're giggling throughout the movie going, I didn't want to ask anybody beside us because I thought it would start a riot. Like, you didn't pay and we paid. And I didn't want to get popcorn because I thought if I go out and get popcorn, then they're going to be asking for tickets or something. Some weird Matrix thing would happen and it would be all a dream. And I would wake up in the bathroom because I fell and hit my head. Something weird. But no, we watched the movie and we walked out and it was amazing. So I've never seen that before. Ever. That doesn't happen. Not 2 weeks in to the movie being released. You don't have stuff like that happen. So maybe I'll have to do a video series on whether or not we're living in the Matrix, because that was bizarre. I can't explain it. Crazy. All right. So let's jump into this video. Again, my goal is to build up a case of whether or not Rainmaker is responsible for flooding the entire Kerr County. That's what I'm not letting this go. I'm not letting these people A lot of people lost their lives, and maybe other organizations move on, and what's the next big thing in the news? But I'm not letting this go. I'm letting this go. So let's just let's go on. I'm going to just show you a little video clip here, and then we'll get started here.
For our jungle river cruise, or for a close-up look at our majestic...
None of these attractions are ready yet, of course, but the park will open with the basic tour you're about to take. And then other rides will come online 6 or 12 months after that. Absolutely spectacular design, spared no expense.
And we can charge anything we want, $2,000 a day, $10,000 a day, and people will pay it. And then there's the merchandising. I can personally...
Donald, this park was not built to cater only for the super rich. Everyone in the world has the right to enjoy these animals.
Sure, they will. I mean, what, we'll have a coupon day or something.
Gee, the lack of humility before nature that's being displayed here staggers me.
Well, thank you, Dr. Malcolm, but I think things are a little bit different than you and I had feared.
Yeah, I know. They're a lot worse.
Now, wait a second. Now, we haven't even seen the part where
Donald, let him talk. There's no reason. No, I want to hear every viewpoint. I really do.
Yeah, don't you see the danger, John, inherent in what you're doing here? Genetic power is the most awesome force the planet's ever seen, but you wield it like a kid that's found his dad's gun.
It's hardly appropriate to start hurling generalizations.
If I may, I'll tell you the problem with the scientific power that you're using here. It didn't require any discipline to attain it. You know, you read what others had done, and you took the next step. You didn't earn the knowledge for yourselves, so you don't take any responsibility for it. You stood on the shoulders of geniuses to accomplish something as fast as you could, and before you even knew what you had, you patented it and packaged it and slapped it on a plastic lunchbox, and now you're selling it. You want to sell it. Well,
I don't think you're giving us our due credit. Our scientists have done things which nobody's ever done before.
yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
That is the question, isn't it? We're so preoccupied with the idea that we could, for example, making it rain, that we never ask the question whether or not we should. We're so preoccupied with drought, making it rain, filling up aquifers, all kinds of stuff. But we don't ask that simple question. All right, so let's just jump into this interview with Sean Ryan and Augustus from Rainmaker. And again, we're going to try and build a bit of a case. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause it from time to time and then share my thoughts as we go along, because I think it is so important. So important. All right, here we go. Here we go, guys.
Let's talk about how this all works.
Yeah.
How does it work?
You have watering clouds, right? I'll walk you through the form of the tech that we understand very well, and then a proposed alternative way. You have watering clouds. 80% of precipitation-ish that occurs on the planet happens because you have watering clouds, and then you have natural dust, or you have bacteria that gets kicked up from the soil, all natural stuff that the water freezes onto, turns into big heavy snowflakes, and then falls, either stays as snow or melts into rain, right? Rainmaker and cloud seeding mimics this natural process where you have water in the clouds, but the droplets aren't big enough and heavy enough to naturally precipitate. If you put material in the cloud that has a crystal structure similar to ice, then the water will freeze onto it, grow into those big snowflakes, and fall. That's sort of like the high level, but the system that Rainmaker uses has a few other important components. So first of all, you have to be able to detect whether a cloud has enough liquid. Because if the cloud is mostly ice, then you can't freeze much more.
Okay, this is important because now we're getting into how good is Augustus Dorico of Rainmaker? Like how precise are they? This is the question we're going to ask ourselves. Are you good at your job? Can you make it rain? With a company called Rainmaker, can you make it rain? That's what we're asking. How accurate are you? If you seed here, is it possible that you're going to affect another county downwind? These are the things that we have to ask ourselves. And if you're not good at it, why is the state paying you arguably millions of dollars to cloud seed if you're no good at it? These are the questions. Either you're very good at it and you're very accurate, or you're not good at it and taxpayers are wasting their money paying you, or private organizations are wasting their money on your organization. You can't have both. You can't say, well, we don't produce anything, but we can totally justify you paying us. You can't have both.
But we use radar to measure how much liquid is in the cloud. The way that we do that is one wave of the radar moves vertically, right? And then the other is oriented horizontally. So you get the amount of the beam that is reflected in both directions. And so if you have about an equal amount of the horizontal and vertical beam reflected, then you have a spherical target. So it's probably a water drop, right? If you get more of one versus the other, then it's probably more oblong and like a snowflake or like an ice crystal. So we can use the radar to measure where the liquid water is in the cloud.
Over 350,000 small businesses trust Zensurance. Zensurance provides low-cost business.
If we find that, then we'll launch our drones up into it. The drones that we've built are the only ones in NATO that are under 55 pounds that can survive in severe icing conditions. This is really cold water, right?
It's interesting that he tosses a lot of names out here. He's name dropping like crazy. Like he mentioned NATO. He's the only one in NATO. That tells you how good they are if he has proprietary software, drones, aircraft, and we're going to be talking about this because he said he was in a plane for 20 minutes. I'm going to suggest that he wasn't perhaps in the right plane that we're looking for. So let's go with it. Let's just assume that he's telling the truth, that it was a plane. But I also want to present another part of this case to suggest or to bring forth evidence that when he's saying plane, that he might be thinking of one of his drones that look like a plane, but they're smaller. He also has 3 drones, which we'll talk about, but he also has another drone that looks like a plane. The other ones have 4 propellers, but this one drone, and we'll talk about it, is kind of interesting because it looks more like an aircraft. So this is important down the road. So let's continue.
So we have these resistors inlaid onto the vehicle that melt the ice off as it accretes onto the drone. So you find the water with the radar. You fly your drone up into these conditions, hope that it survives. You disperse the material. So we have this aerosol dispersion system that basically just emits individual particles that the water freezes onto. And then with the same radar you found the water with, you can now see it freezing, growing into bigger snowflakes, and then eventually bigger drops, and measure how much precipitates downwind.
So you're essentially introducing some type of an agent that has weight to it, and that's pulling the water down.
You're introducing an agent that the water freezes onto, and then it's just the weight of the water that pulls it down. So for every pound of this that you put up, you get in excess of 40 million pounds down on the ground. 40 million pounds of water.
40 million. Wow.
Okay. We don't usually weigh water with pounds, but in this instance, I'm going to go with the idea that if you're a cloud seeding agency, this is how you measure water. It's just kind of, it's a little bit different. Usually we go in liters, but if you think about it, to say that you use for every, I think he said 100 pounds of chemical agent, which is silver iodide. So let's say you have 100 pounds of silver iodide. That will get you 40 million pounds of water. So think about that. 100 pounds. And we got to give you perspective on this, because he's going to be using things like 1 centimeter, pounds, inches, millimeters, acres. Like, you're going to get lost in numbers if you don't grasp what he's saying here. So right now we have a ratio of 100 pounds of silver iodide will produce 40 million pounds. That's a lot. That's a lot of water. All right, let's continue.
Yeah.
How many drones does it take to do this?
Like 3.
That's it.
So what we do is we juggle them. So one drone will go up. Once that reaches altitude, the next drone will go up. The first drone, after dispersing its full payload, will come down, and you'll just cycle that as long as the conditions persist. So sometimes that means, you're out there for 2 hours. Our forward operations specialists, though.
Okay. He said something very important. In one interview, he said they were only operating for 20 minutes. Now he's saying that their average operation is using 3 drones. And if you go to rainmaker.com, you'll see how he uses all these drones, but he juggles them. Meaning they go up, they disperse anywhere from 50 to 70 grams of silver iodide. That one comes down, another one goes up. That one disperses, comes down, another one comes up, and they just rotate through. They rotate through. And it could take a couple of hours to cloud seed. This is important. If you got some notes and you're taking this stuff down, before he said it was a plane, 20 minutes. Before he said it was 60 grams of silver iodide. Then he says 70. Now he's saying the average takes 3 drones. Average operation could take up to 2 hours up there in the clouds. And I believe what he's saying. I believe that. That's how long it takes. So now he's getting into how it starts, how it works.
It's a lot of former vets, National Forest Service guys, oil roughnecks, people that are willing just to live out on a mountain for 9 months at a time. Speaking of which, apply to rainmaker.com/careers to become a forward operations specialist, because we need like 50 dudes in the next 3 months. But they can stay out there for like 4 days at a time, just taking shifts, operating day and night. Because you can have an atmospheric river that will last for days.
Okay.
How big of a...
Okay, before we get here, this is important. How many? This is just a little quiz, pop quiz. I got like 60 some people on here. Out of the people that are watching right now, some of you might be watching at home, put 1 if you've ever heard of an atmospheric river before in your life. Before this interview, I never heard of it before this term. Put 0 if you've never heard of atmospheric river. Put 0 in the comments. So we'll continue, but just think about it. So 1, you've heard about it, you know what it is, and 0, you've never heard of this. Again, I've never heard of this. So think about it from the perspective of having a river of precipitation that moves in from the Pacific usually from a tropical island, let's say around Hawaii or the surrounding islands, or if you're going into the Atlantic, you got the Pacific coming in from the Gulf. There's these rivers, and it's interesting because in the book of Ecclesiastes, Solomon talks about the idea that everything on earth is cyclical, as in there's nothing that has happened today that hasn't happened before, which is kind of interesting because I open with the idea that we're in the Matrix, which is kind of crazy. Point is, we know this. We've been taught this in school, that when water comes in from the ocean, it evaporates into the air, that turns to clouds, it goes over a continent, and then it starts raining. We've been taught that ever since we were a child. I've never heard meteorologists on TV, specifically just before the Kerr flood, say there is a river of rain coming in, atmospheric river coming in, and it could cause potential flash flooding. I've never heard them say that. Instead, they say, oh, we're getting a lot of precipitation, a lot of moisture. Seems like it's getting cool or warm or whatever. And they'll show you radar, but it's always like in little clusters moving across. You never hear the term river. So I'm a little bit surprised at that terminology that Augustus has tossed out. It's actually surprising, and it's forth-telling. So what do I mean by that? Well, look at this. Let's just have I want to show you. It's interesting that he mentioned that. So let me just give a better picture of what a river is. And I think this will help. This will help. Okay. So why am I going down this path, Shane? Why are you going down this path? Because this is important, because now we have a little bit of a scenario of he's not going after clouds, and I'm going to be building this case. He's actually going after atmospheric rivers. And once you understand how these things work, how they move into a system, how they move over a continent, you're going to be, oh, wait a minute. Maybe this guy isn't going after clouds. Maybe he isn't going after aquifers. Maybe he isn't going after farms. Maybe there's something deeper, perhaps more sinister in some ways, that he's actually going after. So let's just go to this video clip here. Here's the definition of what an atmospheric river is, in case you've never seen this before.
Imagine a river in the sky with more than twice the water of the Amazon. It's called an atmospheric river. Atmospheric rivers are long, narrow bands of concentrated water vapor that produce major amounts of rainfall. Atmospheric rivers begin in the warm waters of the Pacific, where water evaporates into the air. When this humid air meets a Pacific storm, the water vapor is concentrated and driven toward the coast, becoming a fire hose of rainfall and wind. Once the atmospheric river reaches the coastal mountains and the inland Sierra, the collision squeezes additional rain and snow from the system. Atmospheric rivers are responsible for up to half of California's annual precipitation. Scientists at Scripps Institution of Oceanography have developed a new system that rates atmospheric rivers on a scale from 1 to 5. The rating system helps identify atmospheric rivers that are beneficial, such as those that replenish reservoirs, and ones that produce hazards like flooding. Understanding atmospheric rivers is key to improving weather forecasts for better managing water resources and predicting flood risk.
All right. So now we have a little bit more of an idea of what atmospheric rivers are and their potential. Did you catch the idea that these atmospheric rivers actually hold twice as much water as the Amazon River. If you don't know anything about the Amazon River, it has a boatload of water. How much water? Well, if you were to take the entire Amazon, all the water that flows through the Amazon River, you could flood the entire United States at least 1 inch. At least 1 inch. That covers the entire United States in water. So everywhere you go, you got 1 inch. That's one time. So twice that amount is 2 inches of rain everywhere in the United States. We're talking you could flood the entire United States of America with 2 Amazon rivers, like the water that actually flows through the Amazon. That's how much water we're talking about. So this is what is actually flowing in atmospheric rivers above us. They're invisible to our eye. We can't see it, but that's all the precipitation that's in there. So whenever Augustus is talking and he's saying there is 80 to 90% of the water that's in the clouds coming over the United States never gets used. That's what he's talking about. He's not talking about a cloud here and there. Here's a cloud that has some rain in it and it didn't rain over this area, but a mile down the road it rained. He's not talking about that. He's talking about the percentage of water that remains in the clouds, and that's what he'll say. But he it's almost like he slipped. He had a Freudian slip. He said atmospheric river. So then I look it up. I'm like, wow, you mean there's enough water to flood the entire United States? Like there's enough water to fill up, imagine 2 Amazon rivers. That's how much you have up there. And it circulates all over. It's not just in the US. It's all over the place. You have rivers all over. And isn't it interesting that in Genesis, when God created the heaven and the earth, according to Genesis chapter 1, we see there is a firmament which separates from the waters above from the waters below. Meaning, there's waters up there in the heavens. How do we know this? Genesis 6 says the springs below the earth, the fountains below the earth, and we know there's water tables and there's all kinds of lakes, oceans. People even say underground. We know this. The Bible says in Genesis 6 that the fountains of the deep opened up. It's like a faucet was turned open. And the windows of heaven, the windows, I believe, of the firmament open up. Multiple windows, not just one, multiple windows, plural, open up and caused it to rain upon all the earth. So now you have a unique flood that God said would never happen the same way again. Meaning what? Not only is it not going to rain for 40 days, including, and it's rained 40 days, but it's different. Today you can have rain for 40 days and it only floods regions. But the difference is God said it is also not going to be the same way like it was. Like I'm not going to use a flood to destroy the whole world like I did before. Meaning you're not going to have these fountains of the deep that are going to open up, and you're not going to have windows of heaven open up at the same time as it's raining for 40 days. That's what caused the flood. And scientists today say, oh, there's not enough water in our oceans to flood the entire planet. That's because they're not telling you that there's rivers in the atmosphere. And they're not telling you, not directly at least, that there's water below us. Some say rivers, some say oceans. There's more water than we know what to do with. This is what makes Augustus salivate. He's looking up into the sky, and with his radar, he's understanding that there are atmospheric rivers. That's what he wants to tap into. Let's go back to the interview. So it gets good. I'm telling you, it gets good. If you thought it was good now, it gets really good. Okay, let me go. Now that I have that, let me share the screen. Let's continue with the interview.
I mean, how exact can you pick a location to have it rain on?
So I cannot make it rain over the house of your enemies. We are not precise enough to target some individual person's house or something like that. We're not even precise enough to target an individual farm. So we're talking about 100 to 500 square miles at a time.
Okay, this is so important. It's interesting that Augustus said, we can't make it rain over your enemy's house. Put that on the shelf. That this is what some of these seed companies are thinking of. How can I make it rain on my enemy? Because it's in their kitchen. People are asking them, can you make it rain on my enemy? If I pay you enough, can you do that? And he said, we can't. So picture this. It's almost like, see if I can see myself. See this little cup here? If it's raining, or if I'm seeding the clouds and I'm right here, this is a farm, usually 99% of the time when you start to cloud seed, these clouds start to move. So, of course, you're not going to hit that farm directly above. Why? Because of all the currents. Like the winds actually push the clouds. So if you're seeding at 0.0, at mile 0, and you know the winds are like, let's say 200 miles an hour, which is ridiculously high, but let's just say that you need to plan on seeding within 100 miles of that, because you know it's going to carry 200 miles. So to make it even simpler, if you are seeding 10 and you have a 10-mile-an-hour wind, you can seed 5 miles away and it'll reach your target because the winds are 10 miles. So that's kind of the ratio. So their whole operation is based on the idea of which direction the wind is going. You have a farm that's 10 miles away. You want to be seeding here because you know the wind is 10, 20 miles an hour. You can now calculate how long your silver iodide is going to last, especially if it gets into the right conditions. That's just, to me, that's just common sense. If you are going to release a balloon in the air and you want to pick it up somewhere, you got to know the direction of the wind. And then you get ahead of it and then you go grab the balloon once the air runs out. Nobody releases a helium balloon and it comes right back down in the exact same spot. We know that. So I'm glad he mentions that I can't rain over your enemy. I can't make it rain over your enemy. They have to be strategic. They have to plan. They have to map where the wind is coming from and where it's going in order for them to hit their target. I think that makes the most sense. Same thing with bombardiers. When they're flying over a city to bomb, they're not looking at the place that they're trying to bomb directly below them. They're figuring out wind And in fact, they would release it before they got to that city because it drifts. It just doesn't go straight down. My whole point. There's wind. Same thing with snipers. Like if they're trying to shoot long distance, they take into calculation the wind. So they have to calculate. They shoot one shot. If it's a little bit to the right of the target, they'll calibrate their rifle, and then so it's dead center. And if there's a little bit of wind, they will compensate for that wind as well. So I'm glad he mentioned this. Let's continue.
In certain cases, up to like 1,000 square miles at a time.
So, sorry, go back. So the smallest would be
The smallest would basically be like an average size city.
okay.
An average size city, the watershed of a hydroelectric dam, something like that. So the smallest would be that sort of scale, like municipal sizes.
When I first started Eve, I was a minor, and I was really
Let's talk about the.
So now he's presenting, this is how we work. Is usually we when we do cloud seed, almost look at it as a circumference of a city. That would be fair because that's kind of the target area. You can't target something like a cup and say we're going to make it rain inside this cup. He's spreading it out to say, look, our region, when we start seeding, it can cover an entire city. It can cover a watershed. This will come up a little bit later. Let's continue.
First time you did this,
Yeah.
where you made it rain.
Yep.
Just walk me through that scenario, that experience.
Well, I'll tell you, first of all, we failed way more times before we actually accomplished it. We crashed a lot of drones. We did not have the system to actually target liquids. So we were flying into clouds that were just ice, so we couldn't affect them at all. It was a pretty. Everybody that's on the Rainmaker team is pretty tough for having stuck out that period. It's sort of like,
So a failure to Augustus is if you take a drone into a cloud and you don't make it rain, that's a failure. He just said it. We've had so many failures. We've crashed so many drones, meaning they've overcome the hurdles of missing their target. They've overcome the hurdles of having their drones crash.
all startups think about how Elon blew up 3 rockets before he actually launched one into space. Like we had a lot of drones crash before we actually were able to make it precipitate. And so we were up in northeastern Oregon in a town called Pendleton. 16,000. It's where Pendleton wool is from, if you know it. It's a town of 16,000 people, 2,000 of which are in a prison. Most of the rest are farmers. So super, super small spot. We have a team of forecasters that saw that there was an atmospheric river coming in. The clouds were about 2.
Again, this is what they're targeting. They're targeting atmospheric rivers, plural, as in this is their game. They're not looking at clouds. They're not looking at farms. They're not looking only at aquifers and going, yeah, we can make it rain there. Because if you could make it rain over these or inside these atmospheric rivers, imagine the water that could be shed. It's unbelievable how much water. Again, I said you can cover the United States of America 2 inches across every state. That's not including all the man-made lakes, all the dams, everything all over the United States. That what if they're full? Well, now you're going to have more than 2 inches of rain all over the United States. I'm saying there's enough water in the Amazon to blanket the U.S. twice over. That's what's in these atmospheric rivers.
2 kilometers thick, almost all liquid. we were able to finally get the radar system functional enough to measure that water, and then launch weather balloons to take in-cloud measurements of the water there. And then we were just flying drones for hours and hours. And we didn't have the processing capability live yet to take live measurements. So we were just out there operating, flying drones for a few hours. And then we pack up, go back to the warehouse that we were all living out of, look at the radar data, and then
sometimes it just takes a bit. If it goes off, let me just see here. Let me refresh. Oh, I think I'm back. I think I'm back. Sometimes you just wait a little bit. Yeah, it was copyright. They didn't. It's interesting because I was able to go over Sean Ryan's channel and talk about this before, but now I'm only like 10, 15 minutes in on the video and already copy strike. So that's okay. It's okay. I got it up here. I find it interesting that happens. He's starting to get to the good part. Okay. How can I do this without making it sound like it's a conspiracy? Because I'd rather have him say it. Here's what the plan is. The plan is to take over some of the basins that are in the United States of America. If you don't believe me, just watch the podcast of a month ago with Sean Ryan. And this is Augusta's words. His plan is to take over. I wish I took notes now. Because I thought, oh yeah, I'll just talk about it as we go. So all right. Take over the basin, the Bear Basin, which is Wyoming, Idaho, Utah. Because there's a problem. The Salt Lake is actually drying up. Anybody in Utah would know this. We actually drove through Utah. When was it? Last October. Nice area. I couldn't believe how many temples were in Utah. It's kind of crazy, especially in Salt Lake City. We're driving to Phoenix. But Salt Lake is drying up, and what's actually at the bottom is they're worried that if it does dry up, that the dust that is created from a dry lake has traces of arsenic, all kinds of chemicals that are bad for people like myself that have asthma and other people. Like it's not good for you to have that whole lake dry up. So Augusta's thinking is, you know what? And this is the deal that he's working on right now. It's like a tri-compact idea between Wyoming, Idaho, and Utah, that they would give him a contract to seed over the Bear Basin, which is one of the biggest, probably the top 10. There's like 2,200 water basins in the United States of America. Most will run out into the oceans or west and east, also into the Gulf, but some don't. And Bear Basin does not run back into the ocean. Instead, it'll go through Wyoming, Idaho, and then back down into Utah, and then finishing in Salt Lake. But the water is going down, so Augusta's idea is to take care of that watershed and just engulf it in rain. So that those 3 states will have rain. They will never experience drought again for their farmers or anything like this. What he's not telling you is that because this watershed does not run back into the ocean, it would be like me saying, I will fill up your bathtub with water and there's no drain in the tub, but I'm going to come back in a day and I'm going to fill it up with twice the amount of water that you are currently getting. You might say, well, I don't need it because I already have a tub full of water. That's what he's talking about, because that is what the watershed, the Bear Basin, that's what it does. The water doesn't leave. It stays there. So if you bring in billions of gallons of water to that watershed, there is a chance that you can collapse that watershed. If you collapse that watershed, you now have control over the water supply. Meaning now you need these states to come to you and say, I need water, please, because we have no more watershed. Because you destroyed it. You destroyed our watershed. And if you destroy a few of those watersheds, these midland states are going to be dependent on companies that can make it rain. This isn't science fiction. If you watch the interview, which I'm not allowed to show, he will say that. This is what I'm working on right now. And this was a month ago. He's working on it. His goal is to terraform California, Nevada, New Mexico, Texas, and probably all the other surrounding states. He wants to terraform it so that it looks almost like the Garden of Eden, lush, ripe with green. Why? So that he could sell that technology to other countries around the world. So who are the top dogs right now? Well, I would suggest to you that China is the top dog when it comes to cloud seeding. Who is second? Probably Rainmaker in the United States of America. They are the top dog and they want to be the top dog in the world. They don't want to compete with China. If China wins the race for water, that means they can choke off the water supply to the United States of America, coming in from the ocean, precipitation, all this kind of stuff. Because here's what I kind of wish I had that video, but I'm going to try my best to explain this to you because I know it sounds really crazy conspiracy. Imagine this. Imagine destroying the Bear Basin watershed. What happens to those people? they have to leave that area. And if they can't leave, they can't insure those places. So if you can't insure those places, you can't harvest crops there because your crops are unsurable because you don't have a proper watershed. Or the opposite, maybe it floods, maybe the watershed doesn't get destroyed. But if you have an organization like Rainmaker that wants to work with insurance companies, imagine flipping the switch and saying, if I make it rain over this county, insurance companies don't have to, in the future, they don't have to pay insurance claims because that area is going to be designated, rezoned, uninsurable. Which means, I'm just using Kerr County as an example. It could be in California, it could be in Nevada, it could be in Arizona. Don't think Arizona, don't think that you're off the chart here. You are next. If you can flood a region out and say that this is a danger zone, then you can rezone it so that another entity can come in and purchase that land and use it for something else, aka 15-minute cities. It wouldn't take very much. All you have to do is prove that this place either gets engulfed in flames or most likely gets engulfed in water, flooded. If it's flooded, you can rezone it later because it becomes uninhabitable until it becomes habitable with new people coming in. Enter China. Don't think China doesn't want to purchase pieces of real estate in America. They're already doing it in British Columbia. They're buying pieces of our land under the idea of these fake shell companies pretending that they're working and living in Canada under a REIT. And they just buy up land, they put up apartment buildings, because before that, this land was no good to anyone. So then they come in, they buy cheap, rezone it, and then now you have the potential for other countries actually taking over your individual states. If you don't think that's happening, the first thing you have to do is you have to walk up to a hall, a door, or a wall and smack your head against the wall, because this is already happening right now. China is purchasing land in the United States of America under corporations, and they're doing it from other countries, almost like developing shell companies. And the only way to be able to do that is if you move people from the land and you say this land is uninhabitable because of torrential downpours, flooding. This is flash flood alley. You can't live here anymore, guys. Go move somewhere else. Go move to higher ground somewhere else. And then these companies buy the land, and then there's no more flooding anymore. Why? Because companies like Rainmaker turned it off. So all of a sudden now you got insurance companies in your back pocket that are paying you money basically to adjust their premiums. Imagine living in, let's just say, in Scottsdale, Arizona, and your insurance premiums are pretty low because you don't get too many floods there. It's pretty hot. And all of a sudden next year you get the worst flood in 100 years. All of a sudden now the insurance companies will raise their premiums to take care of all the pieces of property that are saying, hey, my home got destroyed. I need insurance. They're like, okay, but this was flooded last year, so we got to jack up the premiums. Meanwhile, the rainmaking company says to the insurance company, because you're paying me a premium, you can charge your customers whatever you want. I'm not going to let it rain for the next 100 years. That's the deal. We're not going to let it rain here unless you bounce your premiums. Unless you're trying to do something on the sly. Otherwise, I'll make it rain. I'll flood this whole region again. So now you have insurance companies answering to these rain-making organizations as well. And it's all to do with money. Because again, Augustus quoted Mark Twain saying that, what was the quote? Basically, the war is not going to be fought with tanks, bullets. It's going to be fought over water. Water is going to be the resource. And Augustus predicted that wars are going to be fought within 5 to 10 years over water, over who gets to operate cloud seeding companies, who gets to make it rain. That's going to be the next wave of the war. So if you think about it, Jesus mentioned in Matthew 24, he said, my coming will be like the days of Noah. What does my coming mean? That means the whole time frame that leads up to Jesus Christ, his second appearing, is going to look like the days of Noah. Well, what do the days of Noah remind you of? It should remind you of floods. You can't help but think of Noah and the ark whenever it rains, whenever it floods. You can't help but think of it. So when Jesus is saying it'll be like the days of Noah, just read Genesis 6. What was that? We always think of before the flood. But the days of Noah include up until he dies. Before and after the flood. Those are the generation of Noah. We see him before the flood. He's preaching by building the ark. Never rained before. There's no empirical data to say that this is going to flood like this, like what you're talking about on a global scale. It's ridiculous, Noah. Stop it. So he's building the ark every single day. They're marrying and giving in marriage until they were swept away. So imagine a flood coming. Jesus said it'll be like the days of Noah. Well, there's lots of floods in the days of Noah. All the fountains of the springs open up. Windows of heaven open up. So now you have a parable of two people working in the field, and one gets taken and one gets left. You have two people on a roof. One gets taken, one gets left. What should that remind you? That should remind you of a flood. Because we saw the images in Kerr County where a person that ran Mystic Camp was trying to put a child in a tree, and he got taken. He got washed away in the flood. And if you watch footage after footage of floods, what usually happens is people try to climb to the top of the roof and they get swept away. Two people on a roof, one gets swept away. Two people in the land, one gets swept away. Like what? Like the flood of Noah. The only difference is they all got swept away. All of them. But the point is, Jesus is saying it will remind you of the days of Noah. What happened? They were taken away and they were caught unawares until it was too late. That's what a flood does. You don't think it's going to flood in your hometown because you've been by a river and it has never flooded in 100 years. So you think, based on your empirical data, that you can't get taken away. You can't get swept away. You can't get washed away in a flood. And then it happens. 2 people on a roof, 1 gets swept. 2 people in a bed, 1 gets swept. We have videos of people sleeping and waking up and their cabin is moving. Their beds are being moved. People are being swept out of their home. And then you have a company like Rainmaker that wants to make it rain and make money from it. So I hope this makes sense. A lot of people think of it as, when Jesus is talking about the days of Noah, they think about dry ground, that it could never flood anywhere on the planet, which is not true. It's actually more and more floods, which should trigger a reminder that you're actually living in the days of Noah. It should be a reminder to you going, man, look at all these floods. Oh, what does that remind me of? Oh, Noah's Ark. Noah's Ark. I want to show you something here. I want to show you this. This is something that is interesting. Here we go, right here. I think this will be, I think this is, to me, this is fascinating. Here we go, right here. One second, my computer goes a little crazy. Let's see here. Yeah, I think this works. I think this works. Let's see. Okay. This is kind of, let me see here. It's not exactly the right photo, but that's okay. This will make my point. If you, just off the top of your head, if you think about a symbol for a flood, what does that symbol look like? Just think about it in your head. Not talking about a typhoon, not talking about a fire. I'm talking about a flood symbol. What does that usually look like? Question of the day. Look at this. This is a universal symbol of a flood. If you see a sign, with water below the house and a house on top of the water, that is a flood. Notice that the water isn't in the house. Notice that the water isn't under the house, which is typically what happens in a flood. Let's be honest. Water comes into a house and floods the basement. If you have basements, floods the main floor, and then destroys all the furniture in the house. But the universal flood system is waters, plural, and a house on top. What does that look like? Well, that's the ark. It's a symbol of the ark on top of the waters, floating on top of the waters. What does that mean? Symbolically, it means we will take care of you. We will take care of you. You can rest in our decision making, that we're telling you that this is a flood region. We're warning you. We're telling you that this is a flood area. But it's interesting that it's a house, which we know the ark is also symbolic of a house, on top of water, not in the water, on top of water. That's a universal symbol for a flood. Isn't that interesting that they go all the way back to Noah's Ark to tell you that there is a flood in this region, or that there is a flood coming? That's the universal symbol. And it's in all the countries, all over the place. They all have that. They don't have a different symbol. There's not a symbol that a house is in the water, upside down with water above it. All the symbols are water and a house on top of the water that echoes the days of Noah. The days of Noah was a flood. You can't read the story of Noah without encountering a flood. You can't see a symbol of a house on top of water without it reminding you that there was a flood, a universal flood that flooded the whole planet. It's interesting, right? It's almost like predictive programming in some ways. So imagine having these signs up in a region that used to be occupied by people, used to have schools, colleges, businesses, and now it's all washed away. And now they put up flood signs, and then corporations come in and buy up that land because it's now dirt cheap and put condominiums, apartment buildings, high rises, all this kind of stuff. And then you can move in. It's genius in some ways, but it's kind of interesting that you can't get away from the story of Noah, as in the days of Noah. These signs are everywhere. And in the United States of America, it's getting worse, not better when it comes to flooding. And you got to ask yourself, why? Why are we getting hit with more floods than less floods? Obviously, some regions are getting drought, all this kind of stuff, but the ones that are getting hit with floods are getting worse and worse. And why do these companies insist on making it rain in areas that are already experiencing flooding? Well, I just told you, it's terraforming. Augustus wants to terraform the western parts of the United States of America. He says it. I can't make this stuff up. He's on record. Just watch the Sean Ryan interview. Once you get good at flooding regions and people moving out, now the fun starts. Now you can terraform the entire area so that you could sell the technology to countries and say, look, California used to be a desert, used to be a wasteland. It was fires and everything. We look at how green California is. Look at Nevada. It used to be a desert. Now there's rivers flowing all through Nevada. People have to get around now on boats just to go to a show in Las Vegas. It was us. We did it. So imagine a country that has no water, almost zero, and you present your portfolio of what you've done in the United States of America. Well, now you have a $1 trillion idea, a business. You're going to be the largest water company in the United States of America. Everybody's going to come to you for water because you're the guy that can turn it on or off. You're the guy that works with insurance companies that can insure your land, your crops, based on how much we allow it to rain. This is not me making this stuff up. This is Augustus saying this. They won't let me play the video because I'll get my video will get taken down or whatever. Am I still live? I think so. Yes. So what is another plan of Rainmaker? The next stage within the next couple of years, because the 10-year plan is to terraform the western parts of the United States. Again, specifically California, New Mexico, Nevada, Phoenix, Arizona, and probably the Idaho, Wyoming, Utah as well. but he already has a plan for the Bear Basin watershed. He says he wants to take it over. I think he wants to collapse it. As you collapse that, you have more power. You become the most powerful company because you can turn on water on or off. So what is the other plan? The other plan is to go into Argentina, where it's unregulated or not regulated as much, most likely unregulated. In South America, all the Latin America, all the Latin regions, and rain havoc with more flooding on South America for this. That's the end game. When? Probably the next couple of years, he'll handle the Bear Basin, take over that, and probably a few other watersheds. And then within 5 to 10 years, he's terraforming the western parts of the United States, and he's also terraforming Latin America, including Mexico. And he will be a rivalry with China. There will be nobody bigger than Rainmaker. There's already, I don't know of another company that's as powerful as Rainmaker right now. And they've only been around for a year. That should say something to you. And anything that I've said so far is not crazy talk from the perspective of it's just me making up stuff, throwing it out there. This is from everything that I've watched in all the interviews that Augustus has had over the past month, ever since Kerr County got flooded. And I'm telling you, once he has the ability to tap into these atmospheric rivers, he'll run America. It's all about water. If you can't get water, nothing else matters. Because the next thing is oxygen. Don't think he's not thinking about oxygen. First, you got to choke out the water, then you choke out the oxygen, then you choke out the resources. Anything else after that? It's crazy, right? And they're not even telling us that they actually go after hurricanes, that they live on the bands of the hurricanes, that they're doing testing, they're trying to make it rain more. And all the meteorologists with their fake reports basically saying nothing to see here. This is all natural. This is all natural stuff. We're not doing anything. No company's interfering, and yet they're all being told what to say. And I made a video about it in Kerr County. Think about this for a second. You have a company like Rainmaker that prides itself in making it rain, can control rain, but yet when it rains in Kerr County, they say they have nothing to do with it, even though they were making it rain 2 days before, and their goal is to find a wind that they can plant, inject their silver iodide into so that it takes it 20, 50, 100 miles away and then dumps it. That's how they make it rain. They don't make it rain over top of you. They make it rain over their target. So he'll say to you, because you're not asking the right question, I did not seed in Kerr County. I did not make it rain there because I wasn't there. That's not how your organization works. You have to be upwind from where you're seeding, or where you're going to seed. The wind has to blow that silver iodide to your target region, which is just happened to be within 100 miles. I'm shocked that there isn't an investigation. That tells me there's more people on the take. I'm shocked that there isn't a a hearing on all the stuff that I'm actually been presenting to you based on everything that I found out with what Augustus has been saying in his interviews. I'm shocked because all they would have to do is ask him about how it works. Is there a chance that if you're 100 miles away in the right conditions that you could make it rain up to 100 miles plus away? If you're in point, let's just say point A, can you make it rain 100 miles away? Yes or no? Nobody's asked him that question. Instead, they've only asked him the question, did you make it rain in Kerr County? It's like, nope, wasn't there. Wasn't there. So yeah, I think the big picture, why is this being done? I think part of it has to do with this 15-minute cities that they're trying to build. The only way to do that is to remove people. How do you do that? Well, you got to flood the region. You got to flood it. And you got to make it look like this just happens all the time. Even though on the news, they're saying this is like 1,000-year flood happening in the United States. Areas are being flooded 1 in 1,000 years. That should say something to you. That something different is happening on your soil and nobody's talking about it. That's the goal, is to, it feels like they're just making it, they're just flooding people out. And then imagine going back to Kerr County next year when there's a chance that you could be flooded even worse. If you think 30-foot floods were bad, imagine 60-foot floods. Why would you want to move there? Especially if insurance companies are going to say, we're not going to insure that region. Kerr County is uninsurable. Or you have to pay a premium to move back in. It's going to take them years to get back to where they were last year. Because last year, don't forget, it got flooded by 4 feet. Now it's 20-some feet. Imagine next year. It gets worse and worse and worse. And the worst time to have a flood is after you have a major fire. I've been talking about that with regards to the Grand Canyon. That fire went out of control and it was supposed to be scheduled as a controlled burn. They had a chance to put it out. They chose to look away and they let it burn out of control. Doubled, quadrupled overnight. Thousands of hectares of fire out of control, and it's not even controlled anymore at all. It never was from the beginning. They had a chance to control it. So what happens next? Well, you flood the place now. You flood it. You make it rain because now that ash actually build up a nice little seal that is perfect for flash floods. And if you don't think the property value of Arizona is decent, is good, like it's beautiful right now. Properties are selling and it's good real estate. But if you have floods in that area, you can force people to move out of that area, rezone it, and then have entities like China move in there and buy the land. It wouldn't take much at all. And they're already doing it. That's the thing. I'm not making this stuff up. They're already buying land from the United States of America. I think you guys are in trouble in America. We're in trouble. But I don't know if you guys realize that there are so many people that are bad actors in your country that are not, they don't have the best interest of your country right now. The idea that you would flood out a region on purpose is horrible. It's horrible. Anyways, that's all I have to share for today. So I appreciate you guys for sticking around. I appreciate you guys hanging on for the last hour or so, last hour and a half. Appreciate it. I will continue to do more digging. And it's just it's an interesting time that we're in. Again, you can't help but see we are in the last days. You just can't help it. I never tied 2 and 2 together when I read Matthew 24, that could tie into quite possibly floods that are happening all over the place. I would always look at earthquakes and pestilence. But if you want to get pestilence, a good place to start would be a flood, because then you have all kinds of diseases that come out of the flood. Just think of all the homes that the plumbing just gets backed up, sewage, all that kind of stuff. It's horrible. And if you think about biblical stories about eagles, like parables, eagles going to where the carcasses are, you don't have to look past the flood, because that's what happens when bodies get washed up, when animals get washed up because they've drowned. Birds end up showing up, vultures, all kinds of stuff. That's a symbol of wrath. Whenever you see God saying something like, I'm preparing a table so that the eagles can come and eat flesh, that's a signal to you that is not good, that is God's wrath upon a nation. When you see a table being presented and then eagles are coming to eat flesh, it's not a banquet where, oh man, this is great, this is a feast for us. No, it's a symbol of wrath. When you see things like God saying that I will force the Gentiles to drink wine, that's not a good thing. Don't look at it as, oh, that's a celebration time. No, that's bad. It's very bad. That's wrath. Anything to do with wine, grapes, all that stuff is wrath. And it's all centered around the idea of floods happening all over. And if you go to Revelation, I think it's in chapter 12, where the remnants of the children of Israel, the devil actually creates a flood to try and drown them, and the earth saves her. How? By absorbing the water. That's mud. That's how you get mud floods all over the place. So that should tell you that we're getting very close to it, because right now we don't believe it. Right now we're like, no, that's just an act of God. That's just it. That's it. It just happens. That happens every year, a flood. But when it starts to happen more and more, you can't help but see Jesus' words as being prophetic, that it'll be like the coming of the Son of Man. That doesn't mean the day that we see him in the clouds, that's when it's going to start looking like the days of Noah. No, it's the sign of the coming of the Son of Man. That whole time frame leading up to that is all birth pains, pestilence, earthquakes, wars, rumors of wars, and it'll look like the days of Noah. It'll remind you, wow, it sure looks like we're living in the days of Noah. People are planting, they're marrying, they're giving in marriage. They're unaware that they are being flooded out. They have no idea. And that's what happened in the days of Noah. Noah went into the ark with his family. God shut the door, and they were all taken away unaware until it flooded. They had no idea how quickly they would get washed away. That's what Jesus was saying in this parable. Watch, keep an eye. It's going to come upon people like a flood. They're going to be unaware. They're going to be caught off guard. And there's nothing that catches a person more off guard than a flood. How many video interviews did you watch, or did you see, where a person will be interviewed? Yeah, I went to bed, I looked at the weather report, nothing to see here. I go to bed, I wake up, we're in a flood. I didn't see it coming. I didn't think it can happen here. I've been talking about this stuff since like January 1st about potential black swan events happening in the United States of America. Flooding was not on my radar January 1st. I couldn't think of what I thought. It was something else. Never in my wildest dream did I think that the United States of America would be flooded out. I wasn't thinking that way. So that's how you know that you're in black swan soil, is when you say things like that can never happen here. You're ripe for a black swan event to happen. And then what happens is your world changes overnight. And then the third thing that happens is you try and explain it away. Like, you should have saw it coming. You should have saw it coming. All the signs were there. Augustus was telling us everything that he was planning on doing. Terraforming. This is him saying it. So if you're okay with terraforming your state, what can I say? I think you guys have beautiful states. You don't need to terraform it, so somebody can profit off of you. Hope you got something out of this. If you have, make sure and share this video. Double check and make sure that you're subscribed, because I'm telling you, I get blasted from YouTube. They unsubscribe people. They'll do it in batches. Sometimes they'll do 30 at a time. They'll just unsubscribe. I know, because my mom got unsubscribed 2-3 times. I think my sister Amy got unsubscribed. And people aren't getting the notifications because they're unsubscribed from my channel by YouTube. YouTube will unsubscribe them. It's sad, but that's what they do. They just pick out a pocket. They'll just be like, unsubscribe, 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 unsubscribe. I've seen it happen. I've seen like 30 go at one time. Just boom, 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 boom. And then you call them or you ask them. They're like, no, I didn't unsubscribe to your channel. That's weird. And then they subscribe back. So I know YouTube does this. So that's why I say double check. Share this video to other people as well to keep the momentum going on it. Otherwise, this video will just get buried in the algorithm of YouTube as conspiracy. This is just conspiracy. Nothing to see here. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. Again, appreciate it. And I'll see you in another video. Bye for now.
Black Swan Revelations here on YouTube brought you today's mind-bending journey. Dive into the discussion, your comments, questions, prayer requests, and powerful testimonies of Jesus' love are what fuel this community. Did today's episode hit home? Smash that like button. New here? Subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss a live stream or a video upload. Thanks for being part of today's adventure. Catch you in the next video, or maybe even in the clouds. Stay curious, stay blessed. Black Swan Revelations here on YouTube brought you today's mind-bending journey. Dive into the discussion, your comments, questions, prayer requests, and powerful testimonies of Jesus' love are what fuel this community. Did today's episode hit home? Smash that like button. New here? Subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss a live stream or a video upload. Thanks for being part of today's adventure. Catch you in the next video, or maybe even in the clouds. Stay curious, stay blessed.